What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So for a little while now, we've been discussing when next generation, or I guess current generation now, would officially begin, as this cross-gen period has been ongoing for quite some time. Well, a new job listing that popped up from Sony now has people thinking this PS4 system could be around for even longer than we were thinking. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a frustrating storage situation with Xbox that's been there since the beginning and now has fans calling out Microsoft over it. And we'll also be talking about one of my most anticipated games for this year. It's out in less than 2 weeks, and guess what? Yeah, it leaked online. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with Level 5 and their showcase last week. There was a lot that happened right there at the end of the week, but I did at least want to cover this, so I decided to move it into Monday. And we'll start from the top here with their stream, as they did announce several games. They did start with Deca Police, which, by the way, this game, it looks really good. It's a new IP from Level 5, and I think the more they show this, the more interested I've become in it, but I like what I'm seeing here. That is slated for 2023. Fantasy Life, the Girl Who Steals Time, 2023. Megaton Musashi Wire, 2023. Professor Layton in the New World of Steam, that is still kind of 2023, 2024 according to them, so I'm just expecting it in 2024. Inazuma 11, that's 2023. And they closed out the entire stream saying that all of these games would be releasing worldwide, either in 2023 or 2024. Basically, in the next 2 years, all these games will be released even outside of Japan, which is a big deal for Level 5, considering it takes them time really to get games to release worldwide. So it seems like they're making a big push for fans all over the world. So exciting stuff here, and really it looks like Level 5 is kind of back on track with several releases to look forward to. So hey, good stuff there. Here's hoping maybe they can get Yokai Watch back on track at some point as well. Also, we had talked previously about how a new patch for Pokemon introduced a bug that seemed to be corrupting different people's save games for Scarlet and Violet if they had connected to Pokemon Go. And while it wasn't massively widespread, there were still enough people mentioning this to make some noise online, and it appears Game Freak and the Pokemon Company are aware of this bug. We can see this posted up. This is over at Nintendo Life. It is quoting Joe Merrick over at Cerebi saying, right, so obviously people are wondering about the save data glitch, and rightfully so. TPC are aware. That I can guarantee, as last week I messaged them myself about it. It's very, very rare. We do not know the cause. It's not Go or buying the DLC. I and many others, including friends who are far more skilled than I at this sort of thing, have been trying everything to replicate it to no avail. With us being unable to, I imagine Nintendo and Game Freak would also be working to narrow it down. So that is the other big thing. You have to be able to replicate the bug or glitch itself so that you can then fix it. So most likely that's what's going on there with the Pokemon Company, Game Freak, and Nintendo, because yeah, if you have your game save corrupting for a game as big as Pokemon, where people are pouring hundreds of hours in, shiny collecting, all of this, you want to make sure at least that aspect is stable. So I would expect some sort of update from them here pretty soon. There is apparently a patch coming that's going to be fairly small at the end of April, and maybe that's kind of where they push this bug fix in. Oh, and I was getting a bunch of messages about this. I figured I would address it here very quickly. We can see this over on Twitter. This was posted up, and we can see it appears to be Forspoken Steelbook cases in the trash, and people were kind of running around with this saying, look, just tons of Forspoken copies are being thrown out, but I immediately noticed that those are the Steelbooks, I think from Best Buy. So there's probably no games actually inside of them. When you buy a game from Best Buy or wherever and they have a Steelbook as like a pre-order bonus or just buying from them, they hand it to you separately. So you'd have two different boxes, right? Your main one, normal one, and then the Steelbook. And it wouldn't shock me if Best Buy just had a bunch of these left over because no one really was buying Forspoken like that, and they just tossed them in the trash to make room for other releases coming up. And I mean, really, we don't need to know much else to understand that Forspoken just didn't do well for Square. They said it themselves. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Microsoft and the Xbox's storage situation, which at launch, we had the Xbox Series that had the little CF Express memory card. You'd pop it into the back of it, and it was hot swappable. It was very convenient. And on the PlayStation side, they didn't have anything then. Well, you could use an external drive, but you couldn't play PS5 games off of it. Instead, they said that there would be an update for the firmware down the road that would allow us to use the NVMe slot inside of the system. So at that time, yeah, it looked pretty good for Xbox as they were out of the gate with really, I guess what you say is a quote-unquote fairly priced accessory when you looked at the market around it. However, since then, years later, things have completely flipped, and it has people wondering what's going on here with Microsoft and this little accessory that has now seemingly ballooned in price because everything else around it has completely plummeted in price. There was a really good article that was written up over on Windows Central from Jez Gordon that really dove into this entire situation, and I've discussed the PS5 with the NVMe drive quite frequently here on the channel, especially when there are different deals going on places like Amazon, where you can get a 1 terabyte NVMe drive that is compatible with the PS5 with the read-write speeds for just north of $100. I've seen them at like 105, 110, but I would say the more reliable quote-unquote ones that are the PlayStation license branded, I get people want to go with that. $125 with the heatsink already on it. Whereas you look over at Microsoft with their 1 terabyte memory card, and it's like $200 starting. You can find it on sale sometimes for like $180, but the point is, there's a very large gap here when it comes to pricing, and it gets even wider when you go up in storage size. Go up to the 2 terabyte on the Xbox, and it's $350 to $400. Whereas on PlayStation, I noticed the Samsung 980 Pro on Amazon right now, it's $160. Now, I do think part of this has to do with the fact that there's one manufacturer right now for this card, and that's from Seagate, and we can see this from Windows Central and Jez Gordon, where they say, in any case, seems unlikely that the cost of the Seagate Xbox Series X and S expansion cards will come down anytime soon. And from what I understand, Seagate still has exclusivity with regards to manufacturing the cards, at least for now, so don't expect competition to drive down prices either. And that's the biggest thing right now. If you look around at the market, there are tons of NVMe drives coming in with Gen 4 and the correct read-write speeds for the PlayStation 5, so you have that healthy competition that's just knocking prices down. That and the overall chips that are used have really plummeted in price, and they're much easier to get now versus during the chip shortage and the pandemic and the supply crunch, where prices were, sky high. Now they've just completely fallen off a cliff. So that's why I've seen people pick up 4 terabyte NVMe drives when they were marked down. Even though it's still expensive, when it's 30% off, it's still actually cheaper than the 2 terabyte that Microsoft has with their CF Express expansion card. And I remember when I was first looking at the expansion card for Xbox, I figured maybe a 1-year timed exclusivity deal with Seagate for manufacturing, and then after that we would see other companies jump in and start having their own expansion cards. But no, more than 2 years later, and we're still dealing with the same manufacturer that's basically has a complete control and grip on the market for Xbox. So now really it's just hopeful that there is another manufacturer that comes along, or Microsoft maybe figures something out with this. It's hard to say because I don't see prices coming down if there's no reason for Seagate to do that. Maybe Microsoft at some point introduces an Xbox Series Slim, even a year or two from now, right? 3 or 4 years into the generation, and there is an NVMe slot inside of it. I know the big thing was that it was convenience. But to be honest, it really isn't that difficult to put the NVMe drive inside of your PS5, and it's definitely not $100 to $200 difficult when it comes to the difference in price. So I guess for now, you just kind of keep that external hard drive plugged in. You can transfer games back and forth, so if you want to play it, pull it from your hard drive, put on the Xbox Series internal drive, and then play from there and move back when you're done, or pay probably more than everyone should be right now for a 1 terabyte drive to just plug into the back of that CF Express slot. Here's hoping Microsoft can figure out some sort of solution going forward to get some of these prices down. Next up, let's talk about the PlayStation 4 and how it could be around for the next several years, actually. And this ties into Sony and kind of this cross-gen initiative they were doing for a while there. A lot of their bigger titles that seem like they were PlayStation 5 bound specifically to try to sell the system, they ended up on the PS4. And while I still think they were able to sell PS5s pretty well, considering we see the sales numbers now, it was still that moment of, oh, it's on the PS4 still. Oh, okay, well, how much longer is this going to go? Potentially until, I don't know, 2026 maybe? And I'm not even kidding. Take a look at this. This is posted up over on Insider Gaming, and they say a new job listing on the Naughty Dog website suggests that The Last of Us multiplayer could be coming to both PS5 and PS4. The listing for an associate multiplayer quality assurance tester states the applicant must have working knowledge of PS4 and PS5 systems, suggesting that The Last of Us multiplayer will be a cross-gen game if the listing is for The Last of Us multiplayer. And I would assume that it is, but either way, seeing Naughty Dog have a job listing asking for PS4 experience, I will tell you, doesn't necessarily mean that it is absolutely locked in as a PS4 release alongside of the PS5. The only issue is it actually makes sense considering Sony is going to be looking around everywhere for monthly active users for their live service game, and that's one of the reasons that I think when it launches, it will also be on PC. So you'll have PS4, PS5, and PC. And the other thing to consider here, if it is a live service game, it would be supported for, what do you think, 2 or 3 years maybe? And if they get the PS4 involved now, or even in 2024, yeah, you're gonna see the PS4 still around in some capacity in like 2026 or 2027. And while I don't think this will ultimately affect the quality of the game or its core concept or any of that, there is still that sense, and I see it a lot online, where you understand, okay, this was built for the PS4 and they've moved it to the PS5. Is that older system holding back the newer system? And while I don't necessarily believe so on a visual standpoint, because they can just make things obviously look better on the PS5, I will admit the idea of them selling the PS5 on the SSD being significantly more capable than the old 5400 RPM mechanical hard drive in that PS4, but now these games, they run the same on either one. So is the SSD actually being taken advantage of when it comes to things outside of just loading times? Because remember, they said, oh, you could build core concepts of games around the speed of the SSD. That is something where you're going to kind of raise your eyebrows and be like, maybe. So that's the only thing with that. Otherwise, yeah, it wouldn't shock me if Sony dropped The Last of Us multiplayer, the Factions live service game, and there was a PS4 logo next to the PS5 and the PC. Next up, let's talk about Google Stadia. I bet you didn't see that one coming, but there was a bit more news that's come out now around the service when it comes to the back end, and Google trying to spin it off and maybe offer it to other companies who would be able to utilize some of the cloud streaming technology that they've created, especially when it comes to like games or any of that. Well, it appears that didn't work out either, so we can see this posted up by VGC. They say Axios reporter Stephen Totilo reports that this final pivot has also been shut down. Since the repositioning of the cloud streaming tech, it had been used in limited ways, such as AT&T customers being offered a streamed version of Batman Arkham Knight with certain packages, going on to explain that they even attempted to offer it to Peloton, where they would have gamified versions of their workouts via the cloud, but that has also now been shut down. So yeah, that's basically the end of Stadia. There was that thought of maybe they can do something with it that we won't necessarily know up front as, oh, this is Google Stadia, but other companies that release games or want to take advantage of cloud streaming would use in some way, and nope, doesn't look like it's the case. So all I can do is look at Google Stadia and just go, wow, what a colossal waste of money. That's just kind of what it feels like now. Waste time, waste of money, but Google does at least attempt a lot of different things, and most of the time it doesn't really pan out. They pretty much cut it out completely, and after forming their first party studio division and then ending it a year later, I think the writing was on the wall. But even this was something I thought someone out there would have taken advantage of, and it does make you wonder about maybe the cost of being able to do it or just something, because the idea of being able to reach a ton of customers out there using what was a pretty good cloud streaming platform. If you used Google Stadia, it was probably the best when it came to picture quality and responsiveness. I mean, they were like 4K, 60, HDR, the whole thing, but they're having a hard time selling it to other companies. So does that make you wonder about Stadia or maybe cloud gaming in general as the future? And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Resident Evil 4 Remake, because the chainsaw demo is awesome. I really like this small slice of the game that they've given us. It's like 20 minutes maybe when you go through your first time, and then you can obviously play through it as many times as you want, and you're going to want to because people are finding all kinds of little details and secrets and even extra difficulty mode that was dropped in there. Apparently you can access it, by the way, by doing a certain button combination that was shared online. There are just weapons strewn about. So this is a pretty cool demo that they obviously hid a bunch of stuff in it, but now obviously leading up to the release in about 10 days, the game's just leaked online, and I'm telling you, there is footage all over the place of somebody just playing through the game completely. And I mean, there are like different bosses being shown, scenes in the game that have been completely recreated, obviously because it's a remake. And that's the thing, people are like, well, I already know the story of Resident Evil 4, but I gotta say, some of these leaks that have popped up on places like Twitter, on the timeline we were scrolling, and characters look completely different, right? Some of the ways that they've reconstructed, we'll say, the different scenes and big moments in the game look completely different, to where it would legitimately surprise you and catch you off guard when you're playing through it yourself for the first time. So even though I mentioned how the game seemed to be breaking street date last week, I just wanted to give everyone a warning out there when it comes to Resident Evil 4 Remake. It has indeed leaked online. There's footage all over the place and all this. So be careful out there. Just 10 days. And I'm really excited. After playing through that demo, that's it. I'm good. I'm ready to pick this game up next Friday. But I also wanted to check in with everyone else after that demo and see what their thoughts were on picking it up. And that was our poll question, which we can see that here, where I ask, with the demo now out, are you picking up Resident Evil 4 Remake? 32% say yes, I'm just getting it ASAP. 39% say maybe later if there is a sale. Then 28% say, no, I'm not interested. You know, that's not bad. I put out these polls, and it's definitely split most times, but there are different genres for different people, and a game like Resident Evil 4, I saw some people mention the control scheme wasn't lining up with them, or they just don't like horror or scary games or anything like that. So I believe with Resident Evil 4, when that drops, it's going to do some pretty big things on the sales charts, and I'm just really looking forward to it. I think this is going to be the pinnacle of Capcom with these different remake releases, and makes sense, it's Resident Evil 4. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Anime saying, COD on Switch will be a cloud version. Mark my words. This is said a lot, by the way. Whenever it's brought up that Call of Duty would function on the Switch, people just go, oh no, it's going to be a cloud version. They're going to stream it. That's all. No, it does sound like Microsoft believes that Activision can get this game on the Switch, and most likely it would be 2024, and Microsoft has been putting them over completely when talking with regulators. Oh, Activision, they can optimize, they can work within certain parameters, they can get it done. And to be fair, they just need one Call of Duty release on the Switch to say that they appeased regulators at that point, because they are using the Switch install size to say how many more people are getting Call of Duty. So they need to at least give them one, and then from there, they can move on to whatever Nintendo has set up for their next gaming platform, which actually kind of lines up with their timetable, because I figure Call of Duty 2024, they'll just get one on the Switch, and then 2025, they'll have moved on to whatever Nintendo's next system is, because most likely Nintendo, we assume, will be releasing their next platform by midway to the end of 2024, and then full speed ahead for the next platform in 2025 with that Call of Duty release. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below, but everything we talked about here today was Xbox's current storage situation when it comes to expanding that 1 terabyte or 512 gigabytes of the Xbox Series S. What do you think Microsoft can do to kind of fix or even alleviate the situation? And also, what about the PlayStation 4 continuing to live on, you think, beyond 2024? Could there actually be a Last of Us Factions announced live service game for the PS4 that will have to be supported for years and years, maybe even into 2026? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.